All right, welcome everybody. Beginning of page 2 of lesson 2.3. All right, so let's get going here. Find the value of the first equation and then find the value of the second. So I really enjoyed these questions when I was looking up on Alex, kind of your homework selection and what we were going to do this year. And I'm like, ooh, these are some really good ones. And this whole lesson has some really good questions that I like because it challenges you guys. So first you need to solve for x, because then once you solve for x, because it has an equal sign, then you plug that x value into here to solve for the second equation. Okay, so let's start with the first one. So we're going to isolate the x, right? So we're going to do a multi-step equation. Subtract 5 from both sides. You get negative 3x equals 8 minus 5 is 3. And then remember, take the negativity with you. Divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3. And so my x value in this case is negative 1. All right, so that's cool. But now, here's the second part. You take this negative 1 and plug it in right there. And so what you would do now is have 8 times negative 1 plus 10, right? And then you would solve that out. So you would put this in, that'd be negative 8 plus 10, and so the value of the second equation is 2, all right? So that's how you would do this. It's a really cool thing because it challenges you guys and tests you to see, okay, I found one answer, but now I need to find a second equation as well. All right, so on this one, minus 7 on both sides. Okay, so when you do that, you get negative 3w equals 3 minus 7 is a negative 4. Then you would, of course, simplify, divide by negative 3. You'd end up with y equals 4 thirds, because a negative divided by a negative turns it positive. Plug it in and go. All right, so now we have 3, and the equation here would be 4 thirds plus 4. So there's your equation. Now, same thing. Remember, what is written, what is not written here but should be, is a 3 over 1. So you can do the cross multiplication, right? So 3 and 3 would cancel out to make 1 and 1. So the only thing left is a 4. 4 plus 4 equals 8. Simple enough. All right, so the next one here, the last one, add 2. And then when you simplify this, you negative 4x equals 8. Then you would divide by 4, negative 4. And you get x is negative 2. Plug it in down there. And then you solve and simplify, okay? So this is 9, negative 2, minus 7. And then you plug it in, you do your math. That's negative 18 minus 7. Remember, you spent 18 at the store. Now you've spent 7 more. How much have you spent? You've spent a total of $25. And when I say spent, you guys know it's a negative value in a bank. And if you don't, you should know that. All right, so simple enough. I want you guys to work on these 3, please. All right, so on this one, make sure you have your setup, same philosophy. Add 2. All right, so you'd have negative 3y and then 9. Divide by negative 3. And you get y equals negative 3 just like that. Now you plug that value in down there. And you would get 2 times negative 3. So you get negative 6 plus 6. And my answer is a 0. All right, so please make sure you have that set up. On this one here, you would have negative 1, negative 1. Okay, when you're going through this process, negative 2v equals 4. Make sure you take the negativity with you. So you know that v is negative 2. Hopefully you guys are all doing this on your own and just comparing your work with my work. Plug it in. So you have 2 and negative 2 like that. Or 9 and a negative 2 minus 5. So once again, just like the other one here, this ends up being a negative 23. All right, then the very last one, add 6 to both sides. You have negative 7x equals 14. Divide, your x ends up being negative 2. And then you plug that in, you'd have 2, negative 2 plus 7, which would be negative 16, which ends up being negative 9. All right, simple enough. Just make sure as you're going through this that you guys do the math. I don't go slow on this math, so if you got to pause the video and back up to make sure you got it right, please do. All right, so now we're going to do a couple of different setups here where we need to start learning to combine like terms and then simplifying and basically getting to one variable first, okay? So what I want to make sure you guys know is that 5W and 3W, you're combining like terms. We've already talked about, we may or may not have talked about this yet, but I know you guys have learned this in middle school, right? Because basically what they're saying, if I have 5 watermelons, because I use W, over here, I have 3 watermelons over there, how many do I have total? I have 8 watermelons, okay? So it'd be 8W equals 24. But in this instance, you'd be like, well, when would I use this? You say, well, what if I wanted to know this was in money? So I knew this was 24 and I had $24 and I had 8 of them. How would you find out how much each watermelon was worth? So you divide both sides by 8, you end up with W equals 3. So each one is worth $3, okay? That's kind of how you'd use it in the real world, all right? So same here, combine these. 11 minus 8 would be 3V and a 27. Then you divide by 3, you get V equals 9. All right, the other one over here, combine these terms first. So we got a 5x, you can't combine anything here, and a negative 12. So you need to take this one and combine it into that one first. Okay, so when you do that, you have negative 7x plus 6 equals negative 29. And then these equations turn into what we just solved already previously, okay? Where you would basically have your setup of negative 6 to both sides, then you have negative 7x equals a negative 35, and then you would divide both sides by negative 7. Negative and a negative turns into a positive number. All right, the very last one here, same thing, okay? Combine these two together here, so you have negative 18 equals, because you're just basically adding or subtracting them. So you have a negative 10 and a 7, you're putting them together, and you now have a negative 3W plus 9, and now you solve for the variable, okay? I don't really talk too much to students about adding or subtracting anymore. I kind of talk about, especially with negative numbers, you're smashing positive and a negative number together. Some of you may think of it as addition, some of you may think of it as subtraction, like this right here. How would you illustrate that? Negative 18 minus 9, okay, what are you doing there? Are you subtracting a number from another number, or are you putting two numbers together to make a larger or smaller number? So that's where I got to make sure you guys kind of understand, hopefully, that philosophy when I talk about money. Okay, when I refer to this as money, you guys then can put it in your brain and say, oh, I spent 18, I spent 9, I know how much I spent. How are you doing that? You're doing that because you were raised to think, okay, this becomes a larger sum that I'm spending, okay? So for you guys, just make sure you figure out what's best for you, and I'm not gonna say you add or subtract. Other teachers in the past may have, but what you gotta understand is you're just putting numbers together. This times divided by that would be 9 equals W, just like that, okay? All right, your turn. Same thing, guys. Combine these first. 6y equals 48. Divide by 6. Y is 8. Add these two. That's 5x and a 45. Divide by 5. X is 9. All right, combine this one and this one, right? So the negative's in front, so that's a negative 12. So that would be negative 29 equals, and I'll go 6 minus, that's 7x, right? And then, make sure I have that right? Yes, okay, good. And then you would subtract 6. So you have negative 35 equals negative 7x. And then once again, divide by negative 7. X equals 5, right? All right, the very last one that you do on here, combine these terms. So negative 9 and a positive 6 would be a negative 3x minus 5 equals 19. Add 5, so you get negative 3x equals 24. Divide by negative 3, you get x equals negative 8. Kind of on a slant, but you get the gist, right? All right, so make sure as you guys are going through this that you take your time, see what you can eliminate first, and see what you can combine. And now the fun ones, fractions. Simple, don't fret. I want to make sure you guys can do all of this, okay? So this is why I say this is a challenging lesson, because I thought to myself, I'm going to throw as many fractions as possible. So your first step should be to get rid of the fraction. All right, so let's talk about how do you get rid of the fraction here. All right, this is 3x minus 20 over 4. So you would want to multiply both sides of this equation by the number 4, because I'm putting 4 over 1, but it's technically 4, right? Because 4 over 1 would then cross multiplies to be 1, multiply those out to be 1. They're gone. That fraction is now gone. 3x minus 20 is what's on this side. And since you have the multiplication identity property, you make this a negative 8. Now you can solve what you've been doing, okay? So now you can take and add 20 to both sides and do what we have been doing this entire day, today and yesterday. Come up with the answer. X is 4, right? Simple enough. All right, so now next step, you have one fraction here, okay? We're going to multiply it by a negative 4. Multiply by a negative 4. And when you do a negative 4, negative and a negative is gone. So now this is 5x minus 17 equals. Same here, negative times a negative is now a positive. I like all this stuff because it challenges you guys to think, to change your brain, to make sure that you can understand how positives and negatives flow together. How when you multiply 1, how it solves it out, okay? 5x, if this gets eliminated, that would become 45 equals, divide by 5, x is now 9. All right, next, different style of fraction. Now, when it comes to these, I would have to ask yourself, how do you solve this, okay? The biggest thing you got to do, ladies and gentlemen, is find a common denominator. Now, for some of you in here, you may be thinking, oh, crap on a stick. Why do I have to do this? Well, it's because I want to, like I said, test your brain, get you guys to think and to do more on your own, okay? So on here, I have to find out what a common denominator is between them. The easiest way to do that is to multiply all three denominators together. So 4 times 3 is 12, okay? 4 and 3 is 12. And then times 5 would be, that's a 0, 60. Okay, so what I want to do is multiply this entire thing by 60. Remember, it'd be 60 over 1. So I'm going to multiply and use the distributive property to multiply everything in there by 60. All right, so remember though what happens. So would we write like this, okay, negative 60 over 4? Would I write it like that? Because that's basically what that's saying, right? The answer is no, you wouldn't. I want you to simplify it. Okay, so negative 60 divided by 4. If you don't know what that is, it's kind of what we just did up there, okay? Or get a calculator out and figure that out, all right? The answer to negative, or if you have to do like old school math down here, you can go like this if you want and say, oh, that's 1, that's 4, so that'd be 2, oh, so it's 15. Okay, so you have here, this first number here is negative 15 equals. Now, it gets a little trickier, right? You'd want to divide 60 by 3, which is 20. And then so it'd be 20 times 2 is 40. Now, if you guys don't know how I did that, okay, think of it like this. Okay, now if I multiply this straight out, I would get 120 divided by 3, which is what? 40, because 12 divided by 3 is 4. Put the 0 on the end, it's 40. Okay, I want you to challenge yourself. All right, so, and then that would be a W, and then it's going to be minus, so it's 60 over 5, okay? If you think, well, what's 60 over 5? It's what I just erased. It's negative 12, okay? So, once again, put in a calculator if you want to figure it out. Now we have nice solid numbers. Now we can simplify this and make it a right answer. Okay, now, it may come out to an answer that you may not like, because it'd still be weird, but guess what? That's the beauty about sometimes math. You get answers that are weird, but guess what? They are correct. So my answer is negative. Now this would be written like this. W equals negative 3 over 40, just like that. Solve, simplify, get rid of. Okay, it's a test of your ability to do it. Now on this one here, same setup. 7 times 5 is 35, times 2 is 70. So we're going to multiply everything by 70. Now this one might be trickier for some of you, okay? And I understand that. So what you mean is that on here, this would be 70 times 3 would be what? 210, and you divide that by 2. You're thinking to yourself, are you serious right now? You want me to use that big of a number? Yes, I do. Okay, so the answer with that would be what? If you divide that by 2, it would be a negative 105. Okay, minus, same thing down here. Now change colors. Now you could do all of this in a calculator if you want. But you should know that I'm trying to make sure you guys can do this in your head. So you simplify this to 1, that to a 10. 10 times 3 is 30, so that'd be negative 30x. And then the last one, I already have it written down, so instead of doing the math on it, I'll figure it out myself. And it comes out to be negative 14. Okay? Now you simplify and solve it. All right, so what you want to do is make sure as you're going through this process is solve by adding 105 to both sides. Large numbers you're dealing with, but that's what happens sometimes when you deal with fractions. So it's negative 30 equals 91. Okay, and then you would basically take it and I'd want you to divide both sides by negative 30. So the answer comes out to be, I'll get rid of this down here. Let me change that up. Divide by negative 30. So your answer comes out to be x equals negative 91 over 30. And guess what? It's going to have to be put just like that in Alex. All right, so that's the end of it. This lesson. You're going to have work that you're going to need to work on for page 3. So please get started on that.